Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Taylor and I post all sorts of fitness and lifestyle videos. Today's video is going to be a Q&A video, so I posted on both YouTube and on Instagram asking y'all to send me in some questions, and I got a few, so figured we'd just, go over that. It's a bunch of different things, ranging from like fitness questions to, law school related questions, really just those two categories. So figured I would jump right in and we will answer some questions. So the first question I got, this is actually something I got a comment on a lot of my YouTube videos as well, which is, where'd you go to undergrad and what did I major in? And the answer to that is I went to University of Georgia for undergrad, and I majored in a bit of a mess. I technically, banks are being problematic today. I technically graduated with 3 different bachelor's degrees, because I triple majored and none of them were in the same school, so they all came out as different degrees. But my majors were international affairs, public relations, and economics, so very liberal artsy. And well, one's business and one's journalism. I don't know why I'm saying they're all liberal arts. They're not. So that was what I studied in undergrad, and then worked in something totally not related to any of them afterwards. The second question I got is, what is the #1 tip you can give to anyone applying to law school this fall? So the #1 tip I think that I can give is to get organized, and to get organized early. There's a bug on my foot. The #1 tip that I can give is to get organized, and to get organized, we're gonna lose it with these bangs, is to get organized and to get organized early. So figure out what each of the schools, as soon as you know, build your list of schools that you plan to apply to, and as soon as you know that, start going in and start researching what they're going to ask of you. As soon as you can get into LSAC and see the applications and see what all of the components are, go in, make a list, figure out where, some schools have bonus essays, and some schools, just require the standard, where some schools, you can put up to 4 recommenders, and some school they only want you to send in 1, and try to figure out all of that stuff, figure out all of the application requirements as early as possible, so you aren't surprised at any point, so that when you are building your application and getting it ready to send in, you're not, oh shoot, here's a optional essay that I didn't know was a thing until now I'm gonna scramble to write a 250-word essay. Also, in that vein, optional essays, do them. Anything that's optional I would highly recommend, with the exception of you don't need to pile on more recommenders, I don't think, unless you have a really compelling reason to need more than your standard 2. You don't really need to pile on recommenders, but any sort of optional essay, or why do you want to go to this school, or any sort of thing like that, from my experience, schools appreciate that, and it shows that you're actually interested in going there, so they're less likely to do the whole yield protect thing, where they won't let you in despite meeting the standards because they think you're going to go somewhere else. So write those optional essays. The next question was, how do you find motivation to work out, especially when things are crazy and you're really busy? And this one is actually a pretty, not difficult one, but I think this is it's a super good question. And the answer for me is to make it a priority. And that sounds like a really dumb answer, but for me, it is literally the second thing that I schedule. So when I am looking at my week and I'm getting ready to, get ready for a pretty crazy week, I block out all the things that I know I have to do. So whether that's work, classes, any sort of meetings that are just mandatory things that I can't, move around, bump off my schedule, things that aren't soft tasks that are hard, you have to be at this place at this time, or, in this day and age, log on to this Zoom meeting at this day, at this time. So I'll do all of that. I'll get all of that on there, and then the very next thing I do before I even start thinking about, what other tasks I want to get accomplished for the week, is I block in my workout times. So for me, this will usually be right after work, or occasionally in the middle of the work day, and then on the weekends it's usually just sometime in the mid-morning. And I put those on my schedule, and that's the very first thing that I do, so that no matter what's coming up and what is, thrown my way and all these things that I'm working on, it's never I don't have that time set out. So I have that no matter what, no matter how crazy I feel, I have this, you know, 1 hour block where it's like, no, this was actually set aside for you to go work out. And so that is insanely helpful for me, just because then otherwise I would probably be just like working until 10 p.m. and be like, oh cool, didn't work out today. So schedule it in advance and hold yourself to that schedule. You know, if you blocked it off from 6 to 7, go. Like you scheduled that. Make it just as concrete an item on your schedule as, you know, those Zoom meetings or classes or work or all of the above. That's my answer there. Next question was, why did you decide to become an attorney? So this one is, I'm afraid this is going to be a long answer. Basically, I've gone through a weird route. So the first time I decided to be an attorney, I was in middle school, and I had to write a paper on what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I was told that a fashion designer was not a realistic career opportunity, and so I decided for some reason that the next natural jump was lawyer. Don't know about that one. Then changed my mind for a long time in high school, where I thought I wanted to be pre-med. Realized senior year, did not want to be pre-med, and then I got to college and had no idea. I went in with my international affairs and public relations majors and didn't really know quite what I wanted to do. And then sometime in probably sophomore year, I think I just randomly decided, like, I think law school. And I did more research and I really started to like figure out, I guess, why, which is, I guess, now we're getting into, that was just a timeline, and now we're getting into the actual answer. And for me, it's because a lot of the work that I want to do is very, very based in like policy, and is very based in using the law in a way that is able to have lasting positive effects on people, especially people for whom the law generally doesn't help. So working a lot with like various marginalized communities is kind of what brought me into wanting to go this particular route. It just felt like, for me, the way that I could most effectively use my skills and use my passions and my interests was to get a law degree and be able to come back to DC and do sort of policy type work. And I think that that's going to change. I don't necessarily expect my career trajectory to, you know, go the exact way I expect it to. I've realized, because of the way that my like undergrad, post-undergrad procedure went, where I ended up in a techie STEM job instead of anything that I got a degree in. I don't know if that's necessarily going to stay the same, but ultimately, yeah, the reason that I decided to go was because I really want to do political work, but in a more policy legal fashion. The next question is recommendations for losing lower ab fat, which is a very, very tricky little spot to handle. The first thing here is that it's not just going to go away with exercise. You also have to match your diet. And depending on, you know, who you are and what your goals are, that may like require like actually getting into like calorie tracking and macro tracking, if that is something that, you know, works well for you. Being able to keep an eye on making sure that your calories in are lower than your calories out, so that you are burning fat. Staying away from, you know, things with empty calories, so like high sugary drinks, etc., and focusing on getting protein and getting fiber and getting all of these high quality nutrients. And then of course there's the exercise component, where doing crunches is not going to be, that's not going to be the thing that gets you, as much as, you know, you want it to be, you know, you do some crunches, you get some abs. Unfortunately, you do want to build muscle there. That is always a good thing to focus on. Strength training is great. It is definitely a thing worth putting your time and effort into. There are certain things that you can do that more target those muscles in your lower abs. They won't necessarily get rid of lower ab fat, but targeting those muscles so that, you know, you have a nice solid foundation underneath when you lose fat are things, you know, like leg lifts and flutter kicks and anything that, you know, reverse crunches that engages that lower half make sure you put some of those into your routine. And then also, you know, in order to keep that whole deficit situation going on, cardio is usually a good thing for that, whether it be high intensity interval training or running or whatever. And the final piece of advice I will have here is that no person's body is the same. Sometimes this won't like, sometimes this isn't enough. Sometimes this might be worth talking to a dietitian, or, you know, talking to a doctor, because not everyone's body reacts the same way, and certain people's bodies hold fat in different ways and hold it for different reasons. And so sometimes if the good old standards, if you're doing everything right and it's still not working, and it's not working for an extended period of time, because these things take time, if it's not working for an extended period of time, this might be a good time to go to a medical professional. This is above my knowledge level. The final question. So this was basically, what did your resume soft skills look like before applying to law school? So I applied in the fall of 2018. So I actually had none of my current job on there now. I had all of my college stuff. So I had my 4 years of undergrad, and I had the one job that I had held at that point, which was the job I was working on a campaign. And then I had a heck ton of internships. None of them were actually legal related, I will say that. So a lot of my internships were all very public relations based. Most of them were generally fitting of a general broader narrative, in the sense that I was applying to law school with this sort of idea that I want to go into this to do policy, I want to work in politics after law school. And so a lot of the places that I worked were all various political organizations that lined up with my political beliefs all throughout undergrad. I had a job, but then I had internships pretty consistently through, you know, fall, spring, summer, you name it. I probably had an internship at that point. So I think that also helped me, having all of that on my resume. And then, you know, you just also want to throw in like some fun things in case an interviewer decides they want to ask you like a question about, you know, your hobbies. Just make yourself a little bit more like human and personable. So I think I had things like scuba diving and creative writing, and I had that I'm a personal trainer on there. The personal trainer thing ended up being such a, like, that's like one of those things that, like, it's like evidence, I guess, that, you know, sometimes these things that you don't expect to be even remotely related to law, or even remotely related to your application, can actually be like super cool. And they, like, that was a thing that actually multiple interviewers and for multiple schools like brought up, and we like had conversations about it. So definitely it's good to have like a fun conversation starter like that on your resume, and kind of like as a fun little soft skill. Don't necessarily need to like go out and get a full personal trainer certification. Like, there are plenty of other things you can do that don't involve going to school for like intense training. There are definitely things that you can put on there that don't involve, you know, intense training and all of the sciencey stuff that I had to learn to get my personal trainer certification. So don't think you need that whole mess, but definitely you know, diversify your resume. Everything doesn't have to be like 100% related to your legal career. It doesn't have to be perfect. And, you know, I think people tend to like looking at potential law students who have more to them than just, you know, their legal interests. Don't know, I'm not an admissions counselor, so I can't say that with certainty, but I know that if I was looking for someone to admit to my law school, you know, it's fun to have people with some interesting character traits. So I think play up any sort of interesting factors you've got about yourself, which vaguely answered the question. Anyways, yeah, I also was on leadership for 1 or 2 student organizations, one of which was law related, one of which was related to my econ major. So I did have some student org involvement there as well. Anyways, okay, so that is it. That I cannot believe that I managed to talk for 17.5 minutes about 6 questions, but I did. So that is the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more from me, you can hit the subscribe button down below, and I will see you guys next week for another new video. Bye.